This is the full Game 2 VOD of the matchup between Weibo and BLG from the Semifinals of Worlds 2024.
Coming in Game 2.
Time to answer those questions right here, right now, as we jump into Champion Select, powered by Omen and HyperX for the second time in this series. Same size as the first time around.
Yone.
It's Silas, Rakan, and Yone banned out by Weibo. They have to pay part of BLG's red side taxes, as it's the Aurora and the Orianna continuing to be banned against Xiaohu.
And Azale, you called this morning.
Yeah.
10 a.m. we were talking. He was like, you know what? They're going to leave open the Yone, and immediately they're going to lose, and Weibo's going to have to ban it.
Yeah.
And it was exactly what we've seen. So we've got the profit alongside us today.
I mean, they're going to make a ban the Yone, and they got to pay for it too. So it is rough there for Weibo. Now you're just in like a lose-lose situation because they've just said, okay, yeah, you were right. We can't play it. Our bad. I apologize. Okay, now let's restart.
Which is unfortunate because Xiaohu actually looked pretty good. You just felt like you needed a little bit more of that supporting cast to help him out. But now going back towards the Kalista as well, and Bin going towards the Jackson.
But that's one of those things that often happens in a series like this. Even if it's not the fault of the pick, if the pick loses and you weren't supremely confident in it coming in, are you really willing to risk going down to match point on another Yone game? And I think clearly most teams are never willing to do that. So we're going to have a very different look, though. It is going to be the same bot lane. They're taking your option, Rob, like you were talking about, drafting Engage from the jungle, but keeping that lane dominant 2v2.
And this specific Engage from the jungle, remember, was that third and final ban on BLG's side in game number 1 in the first phase.
This is what I'd like to see from Elk, though. The games that we got to see from playoffs, Ziggs was so strong when Elk could get his hands on it. He ended up having a ton of pressure in the lane. They could rotate him around the map super effectively. They started knocking down turrets right, left, and center. And Weibo were left dizzy trying to keep up on the map.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this was a second phase ban from Weibo last game, so now it's open. They're going to grab it in that first round. And I always have to correct myself because when I talk about Ziggs, I always say it's, you know, it's a mitigation pick. You're going to try to just nullify a lane. And then I remember every time I watch the LPL, I was like, well, actually, Ziggs plus anything turns out as a kill lane in the LPL. They just kill you, clear the wave, take your tower, and then you have to thank them for it. It's kind of with players like Showmaker. To me, it's always been a night champ. This is one of the guys that I, really, really respect playing the champion. As far back as 2020, I remember making a content piece on his Syndra. I watched every game of Syndra he played the entire year. This guy is different on the pick. He is so damn good on it.
2020 summer, game 5 of finals. against
Scatter from the Dragon
JDG.
Pit.
The scatter from the Dragon Pit won him his first title in the LPL. It is synonymous with him, and now we get to see him take it to the main stage here at Worlds.
And I'm going to be interested to see if those trends that I'd seen, from all these years of him playing Syndra do continue, because one of the things he really does do different than a lot of other Syndras is he doesn't always play with a team. He'll often play on angles from the side, being fishing for a poke over walls and putting himself in this position where it feels like maybe we can engage on him, but he's not quite in range, and he's still in range of hitting you with the scatters and really making your job difficult.
I will say, though, against a composition like this from Weibo, there's a lot of different things that can hit you from pretty far away that are CC reliant. So I think it will definitely be more of a front-to-back style fight, but I think it's a good adaptation coming through from Weibo. You have champions like Skarner that want you to play into them. Champions like the Jacks that kind of want to find these flanking angles, but you have so many different avenues to cover with this composition, and you've just got like Xiaohu back on comfort on this Lucian to try and go toe-to-toe against Knights.
I feel like we cannot see another game that doesn't have first blood until 17 minutes if Weibo wants to have a chance. I feel like when you have Lucian mid, Elise jungle, Kalista bottom again, you need to get scrappy. You need to build some early advantages and have these smaller fights and skirmishes early.
And if you're thinking about Elise as one of these picks that is getting more popular online, it was actually buffed after this patch. So it wasn't until after the Worlds patch that those Elise buffs did come through. I'm very excited to see if we can make it work, though.
All right, remember, log into your Riot account on lolesports.com and watch Worlds Live to earn exclusive Worlds emotes, icons, and capsules. All sorts of good stuff in there, so log in, check it out, and I am so excited to see how Tarzan plays this, how Tarzan passed with this, and I like what you bring up as oh yeah, the buffs happen after this patch or whatever. Sometimes it's just enough to get people thinking about it again.
Exactly.
And you think, maybe the buffs weren't even what I really needed. Maybe we were underestimating this.
Yeah, absolutely, and Elise can run away with a game. There's just so many things I want to talk about and so many things I want to watch in this game, though. I mean, it's two mid laners here that are, in similar places in their career trying to battle for that World Championship, playing some of the most iconic champions for them. And Elk is going to spot them on this invade. But Breathe Tarzan, that top side is screaming out Merc Treads, and Ben could be really difficult to deal with when he does get those early Merc Treads. But this is a full-on brawl. It's going to be a 10-player fight.
Yeah, Xiaohu has to dash back over the wall. Weibo still in the enemy jungle, but the big chicken is already going to be controlled. Light trying to get away, but the crash down comes down from On! And BLG's already got first blood. It's about to go from bad to worse as Breathe has to try to escape, and the bombs keep bouncing in. Nice sidestep to get away from the rock, but they aren't done yet. They force the flash out of Xiaohu. He's burning down to the Ignite, but he will not die to it just yet. Weibo trying to strong-arm their way into the jungle of BLG. They don't even get the big chicken, and they get hit right in the mouth.
They get clotheslined from the flank. Bane in a great position, wandering down. Elk there as well. Now you've got Chow who has to reset to try and come back out onto the map, burn his TP. No flashes for so many of these carries, and it's an insane start.
Yeah, exactly, and I really want to draw your eyes to the pressure they put on Xiaohu. That decides the fight. As soon as they push him out, he has to dash over the wall. It's just a collapse in. Ben gets the stun onto Light, and then there's the easy follow-up with the flash crash down there from On. It's all about pushing the Lucian out, creating this temporary 5v4 where they can focus down the enemy AD carry. And this is just insanity for a World Semi-Final here. 10 men fighting over Raptors at level 1. That's LPL, baby.
That's what I was going to say. It's the LPL semifinals, and you know how much this means for both these squads. Weibo trying to get back to that World Finals, for BLG trying to right the wrongs of 2023.
And I was thinking, when I saw this Elise pick, I was like, man, I haven't seen that in so long, but maybe I missed something. No, the last Elise in World's main stage was 2019. The last at play-ins, just 2020. But now, a potential dive down here in the bottom lane could be turned around as Ben, On, and Elk want some damage of their own. They put some hurt onto the enemy jungler, but it's going to be On who's mostly in trouble. First kill goes over to On, taking out Breathe, but a 1-for-1 trade already as Tarzan has to continue trying to run away. Xiaohu rotates over, but BLG with less men, trade even.
And they had no mana on Elk, so the fact that they're able to push them off there is perfect. He now gets to move back, pick up all of this CS, and just getting that turnaround again with Weibo trying to play through this strong early game, but it's been a disaster thus far.
I mean, it's going to be so tough for them, but when you play Elise, you don't get to just sit back.
No.
If your first gank doesn't work, guess what? You better hope your second one goes better because you got to keep the pressure on. This TP really made it difficult. The CC onto Tarzan he wasn't able to get in spider form and actually repel any of the initial CC, so it's crash down into the Q stun, into the counter strike. It's everything locking him up and pushing him out really before the fight began.
And the fact that both kills go to the support as well is kind of heartbreaking on either side. You can see the Weibo coaching staff not looking too pleased with the results of things, but it's still Elk getting a ton of CS on that bottom side. He's going to move back to this bot lane, being able to rotate up to start getting some of the CS on the top side as well. And you can already look at the gold that's opening up on the top of your screen as well.
I'm just really interested to see how this 1v1 is going to go. We just haven't seen top lane Maokai in so long. You know, how is the extended lane going to go against Bin? Especially, as I said, when he gets Merc Red. Shun, though, looking for Xiaohu.
Yeah, Xiaohu slammed into the wall. Remember, he has no flash to try to get away. And Shun turns him into scorpion food with some help from Knight. BLG, 3 kills before 5 minutes.
Great gank from Shun, just clipping Xiaohu as he dashes back, and it's easy follow-up from Knight. Even the fact that Om was there to cover Crisp, so he couldn't even get any sort of bailout or anything, or some way to try and keep his mid laner alive.
Yeah, and this is just critical on helping Knight crash that, so there's no way Chris can actually hold the wave and freeze it for Xiaohu. Means it's a clean reset for Knight. The wave will be pushing back towards him. You know, Bin had that wave that he collected at his tower, and is going to be escorting in, and Breathe does not win this extended fight, but Light showing up, of course, means Bin is going to have to back it up.
Exactly. The Jacks can happily back away from that one, not under any serious threat. Down 1,000 gold, a little bit over that. 5.5 minutes into the game for the super early comp of Weibo. Feels so tough to play. 20 seconds now until that first set of grubs spawns.
Especially when so much of it is in Knight's pockets. We all have played against a Fed Syndra. You hit this certain point in the game where it doesn't matter if they hit their spells anymore. They just kind of miss a few skill shots and then press R and you die. And it becomes so difficult, especially when you're playing something like Lucian, because Lucian can't sit back. Lucian has to be confident, has to be playing in the face of their opponents to be able to really get that damage done. So for these mid-range, short-range AD carries, which is really both of them, it's going to be tough.
But this is what I talked about when BLG get this Ziggs. They move around so well. Gonna have to fight Weibo here, though.
Weibo coming up to challenge for the grubs. BLG trying to get themselves away, flashing out of the range of the handshake. Weibo securing grub number 1 as Xiaohu's ready to join the fight. El taking a ton of damage. Calling coming over the wall as Xiaohu wants to dash after him. Last auto attack ain't gonna find the kill as now On's gonna try to get away and Breathe. Barely tries to kite it out. Shun needs a little bit more damage to try to take him down. And a lot of damage on Bin's gonna be the first kill as Breathe survives. Xiaohu kills Elk 2-0 for Weibo in the grub battle.
Great fight set up from Weibo. As they move in, they turn on towards Elk. They're able to get over the wall with a ton of pressure. Now Knight alone under this tower, but Weibo collapsing.
Shun tries to turn around back onto Tarzan, but he used the E-Shawl impact on the large Krug instead. Tarzan, with his teammates behind him, feels confident moving further forward. Knight goes for the scat of the week. Yes, he hits Xiaohu, but he's not close enough to pose any real further damage threat.
Yeah, it is really, really rough. And look at the waves. Every wave, it feels like he's just pushing towards them on the minimap. We can see that got pushed in by Breathe. Bot lane wave is already shoved up. Top lane wave is already shoved up. It's a full court press, it feels like, for Weibo right now. They are really ramping up the pressure after that one fight.
Honestly, they needed it so badly. Things were looking awful for this team that really wanted to get the gears turning early, but the grub fight turns it all around. They got that first grub. The other two still alive in the river right now, and you're going to see Tarzan make very short work of those.
It's also the fact that if this game actually starts to extend into the later portion of the game, you're incredibly AP heavy on BLG, so getting things like Banshee's Veil is going to be crucial, but the Cocoon on towards On lets Xiaohu play really far up here because he knows he can't be locked down, and On, even when he goes for it, ends up missing on towards Xiaohu. On the top side, Breathe has already got the majority of BLG chasing him, but watch over the wall. Another great Cocoon from Tarzan ends up hitting onto Elk, which sets up then for the piercing light over the wall from Xiaohu to finish him off, and it's just these small interactions from Tarzan that really set up a cascading effect in that fight for Weibo game.
I mean, he played the fight very, very well, and you have to be able to be confident like that to look for these aggressive moves on the Elise to really try to stay ahead of the pace of the game. He's not going like the full-on old school, like Sork Boots rush, run around the map, just do nothing but gank. He is building AP, obviously, so your farming is definitely not bad, but it's very difficult, especially to play the fights out in the later stages of the game when someone gets tanked.
Aggressive Fates call from Light, throwing Crisp in. Nice handshake accuracy there on Elk. He wants to use the satchel to get away, but the spears are already inside his chest. Beautifully done in the bottom lane, but answered back in mid as Bin makes a rotation to knock down Xiaohu with the help of Knight.
The face call was a little lackluster, but saved by the handshake, and now Light going to be able to get a ton of damage onto this bot lane turret. But as you say, Bin at least getting that turnaround in the mid lane on.
Okay, On could be in some trouble here. Another nice handshake. Some spears in the rel means more damage even coming out, but the TP is available for Elk to try to reinforce his support if he needs to. Crash down for the extra shield, but it ain't gonna matter. Light on a killing spree on the Kalista as Weibo takes the kill lead.
And Light is just dancing around on there, dodging the Shattering Strike, dodging the crash down as well, making it look easy to get that kill. Elk decides not to TP in to bail him out, just walks back to lane.
It makes me wonder why Weibo kept banning this against LNG. Like, Light has been such a good player on it, but now Xiaohu putting some hurt onto Shun. But I think Light has been exceptional for Weibo, and getting to see him strut his stuff on this Kalista is definitely worth watching.
And the show is kind of on the other foot now, because when you look back to last game, it was Elk who had this massive gold advantage on the Varus coming out of this lane swap. He got so much plate gold. He was really the beneficiary of that early game, and this time it's Light who's in this commanding position, who's going to be able to get to an early Blade of the Rune King and potentially put them in a position to tie up this series.
Especially when you're looking at, a minute 40 until Void groups. He gets the reset, he'll have Bork and the boots already completed, but TP again behind Elk. Weibo are not letting the Ziggs have a good time.
They are putting a bullseye on his back. Elk will try to escape, but the lockdown of the Maokai, the damage of the Elise, it's an easy kill for Weibo and Breathe.
And Weibo are doing a great job, not only in this game but the series, of matching what BLG want to set up with. When you look back at playoffs, it was BLG pushing in with the Ziggs, turning around the ganks, and getting into a position where they could outrun Weibo on the map. But it's Weibo who are taking control right now, and BLG who are struggling to answer.
Shun looking for the Ishtal impact through the wall to block the escape of Crisp and Light. Bone plating already coming out there from Crisp. Hostile takeover to clear some space and make it so Shun can't land the Impale. Crisp and Light both escape.
Yeah, Crisp played that really, really well. Just walks up in the face of Shun, pushing him back, using that Hostile's takeover, prevents having to use a flash, prevents having to use a cleanse or anything like that for Light, which are much more valuable resources. And this is going to be the TP pushing out here from Bin down towards that bot side as Breathe was able to take a turret plate. He has just been pretty active on the map, and he is on much more of kind of just a playmaking champion. You're going to be frontlining, you're going to be looking for picks. It's not about the side lane, so it's okay if he's not keeping up in farm as long as he's active on the map.
Yeah, and I think this is impressive to see from Breathe as well, because he's had a great Worlds. Hadn't had the grade of regular split, but even over the course of his career, he's been more the the Riven guy, the Aurelia guy, the guy who wants to try and take over in these and be the carry. Taking a step back here onto something like the Maokai, having access to the map. Like, this is Breeze really showing up here.
I think it's really cool. We are going to have a TP down. We'll see if they can pull off the dive.
Yep, Breathe's your target. Maokai can be tricky to dive, though, if you don't have the coordination in place. Twisted advance already. Try to get himself back into a good spot, but it won't work. Impale from Shun seals Breathe's fate. They put the money on Bin, and with 4 men here in the bottom lane, BLG are going to bulldoze this turret. But at the same time, Tarzan on the other side will secure all 6 grubs for Weibo.
Yeah, they're going to get all the grubs, and they already took down that first tower on the top side. It's a 1.8k gold lead here for the Kalista. Bin going to collect some gold back on that bottom side, creates an advantage for himself. And it's really just going to be a tale of 2 lanes. Who can get more done with the advantages that their team have given them? There's still so much confidence in Bin that he can make it happen, especially on his signature Jax. And now he's got to show that he can be the difference maker in a game like this.
It's also, if you can draw multiple members of Weibo to deal with the Jax, it opens up for Elk so well to just start demolishing turrets. So you have to be so careful as Weibo how you try and open up in this game state. But I think they're in a good spot, right? You've already got a quicker reset. They can open up on mid, Dragon in 25 seconds with first items now completed almost entirely on all of your carries. Like, you're in a great position if you can find the fight now. But Rift Herald in 55 looks like that's kind of more where BLG are going to put their looks.
I also just think it's really cool that we're seeing the continuation of these new picks coming out, right? People are not shying away from that. They're seeing the success of teams like FlyQuest against Genji, and Weibo's like, hey, if it works for them, why can't it work for us? Bringing out a Maokai top, bringing out an Elise. It's picks that make sense within the context of the game, within within what they want to get done in the game. And I just love to see that constant evolution of the meta, and I'm hopeful that it continues to work.
Yeah, I already talked about how the Elise at Worlds specifically is 5 years ago for main stage, but if you're looking at Maokai top in Tier 1 regions, this is the first time all year long that has actually been played in that role, and Breathe and Weibo are doing pretty good with it. Tier 2 turret gonna fall there in the bottom lane. It's a 1,500 gold lead for Weibo. It's a 2,000 personal gold lead for Light on this Kalista, and it's easy for now that second Drake of the game to go over to Weibo as they pick it up, no contest.
Yeah, they're just going to shove in mid though, so then they can try and rotate up towards the Rift Herald, but I don't really know if they're in a position to just blast this one out. I think that's why they're looking for the pick, as Breathe moves in.
Breathe has those saplings though, so powerful for a scouting tool. Ben getting tagged, slowed down a little bit, but not in range for the twisted advance, so he can just continue walking this one away. 14 minutes on the clock, lane economy snapshot, thank you MasterCard. You can see, man, it's all Light all night, and Crisp right next to him, the second biggest gold lead in the game on a support.
But Light is just going to be able to keep this pressure up now. He's moved in towards mid. You've spent your timing window as BLG on that top side, and now On is already getting forced back, so you're just getting these waves in order now for Weibo to look towards Rift Herald. The cross maps are not coming through for BLG.
No, they're not. I mean, it's been difficult, right? Because they feel like they are behind tempo. They are getting pushed in. They're worried about the Elise, so they're not able to fully shove out these waves. And it's making it difficult for them to actually make the moves towards these objectives. And normally, I don't think support gold is that big of a deal, but at this point in the game, when it results in an item completion, like the Locket is actually really big in some of these early skirmishes. So I agree with BLG. They have no business contesting this fight. And the question just becomes, you know, which side is going to scale better? Because BLG is very AP heavy, which is definitely a weakness. But at the same time, you have Elise, you have two short range AD carries on the other side. And it's really going to come down, I think, pretty heavily to execution.
Yeah, I think the only one who really benefits is Breathe, because you can go for that something like a Spirit Visage, which then is super nice for getting that extra healing off of your passive and just becoming an absolute monster in team fights. And for BLG, a lot of them, their fight will be front to back, apart from, say, like Min. But if you can actually just have, you know, Breathe stand in front of a Ziggs bomb or even a Scout of the Week from the Singed, it becomes way easier for Weibo to operate, although they are a very short composition that still can be in range of a lot of that threat.
And they're still going to have, you know, that difficulty on the engages, right? Because again, it's really going to be on Breathe, it's really going to be on Tarzan to be able to start up these fights, to have the confidence to go forward, find those picks. You know, Xiaohu and Light, you know, could even go towards things like a Ma later on in the game and have a lot of value there. Because if Knight positions aggressively and is trying to get those 100-0 plays, and you're reliant on a lot of the AP damage from Elk as well to reach backline, hey, if you can't 100-0 them, maybe the sustained damage of these double AD carries can really shine through.
And especially if it's a Cloud Soul that Weibo can pick up, having that like Maokai ultimate into his speed up, being able to chase down people, can make things significantly easier for Weibo to start some of these fights. So you can already see the opportunities for Weibo to close out this game. It's just how do BLG disrupt that so they can enable a Ziggs to tear down turrets, so they can look for picks around some of these key objectives on these carries as they look to face check.
And Weibo are feeling confident with their current state of the game. Nearly 2,000 gold ahead. Crisp going to step up, try to secure a little bit more vision here in the enemy jungle. That Tier 1 and Tier 2 turret both being destroyed in the bottom lane does give Weibo a little bit more bravery stepping into enemy territory, knowing there's not a place for their opponents to easily fall back to if need be. Bin versus Breathe up here on the top side. Teleports coming in from both teammates, as you're going to see Xiaohu arrive first. But as soon as Knight shows up, he's got to fall back. Nice use of Scout of the Week to interrupt the culling, but the fight is already over at the cost of both mid laners' teleports.
Yeah, you can see the extended fight. Bin would win in that 1v1, but Breathe just has to buy time in this situation. He buys enough time for Xiaohu to arrive. He's able to push them back, and there's not really anything cooking on either side.
I do think Xiaohu's teleport being down is better for BLG than Knights, though, because you want this Lucian to be able to play through a side lane and being able to put pressure down. Forcing him towards objective fights in like a minute's time and not being able to cross map, I think helps out BLG in a way.
I fully agree with you. They also just have an extra TP, right? Because Elk is running that teleport. So if you can trade 1-for-1 in teleports, you are going to be up teleports on the map, obviously. And you do have that extra answer, you know, of someone like Elk, who can easily go to a side lane, just wave clear against the Lucian, and still be able to join the fight on a teleport.
All right, we've got less than a minute until that next Drake is around. 1-to-1 means not really a whole lot of reasons to trade aggressively for those. I feel like you have to stop them. If BLG just needs to keep pumping the brakes, you have to think they'll just let this one fall away. Not that big of a deal right now.
I mean, I think BLG's game plan is basically the same as last game. They just don't have clear scaling win conditions like they did last game. They want to play it slow. They want to use the Ziggs to buy time for the stacks to come through for Syndra, for Ben to become a real threat in the side lane where I don't think anyone can answer him this game. The question is, do you win 5v5 when you scale up, or do they have to hard commit to a split bush win condition because they don't have a smolder, right? Like, it's not that same easy guaranteed win late game.
Ooh, Knight doing the Syndra special, steal away the blue buff, makes it a lot harder for your opponents to continue to push those smaller advantages, stealing away the mini objectives, but the Drake is live, and BLG, exactly as we expected, they're just backing away. No need to fight for this.
I think this is where you need to start just trusting that Knight can wave clear solo, especially when he gets towards his second items, and you start to stick Elk with Bin in a side lane, because if you have a two-man threat, Breathe can't really step up to the wave, and then suddenly you can very quickly take away these towers, use the extra teleport they have available to you to try and play for the objective fight after as well, but in these sort of positions, it's tough.
Oh, on goes in for the flash, engage, but it fails. He misses Shattering Strike, so Magnet Storm has nothing to connect to, and Xiaohu just casually steps out of the way.
Yeah, that one hurts, because that is a lot of your threat of that engage. Thought he had a window to make a play before the Herald was summoned up. Now it's here.
Yeah, Breathe summoning the ulti over the wall to try to stop BLG from being able to defend against this Herald charge. Charge already completes, but the turret with so much HP, not even close to dying here just yet, despite the fact that it is 6 grubs for Weibo.
And it's a lot of Weibo grouping up on this mid lane tower, so you still have Bin, who's just kind of farming his way up on the side lane, starting to get closer and closer to that 1,000 gold lead, but BLG, the wave clear is insane.
Okay, Light forced to cleanse and flash to get away there. Knight doing a good job, max range, scatter the weak to put pressure on the Fed carry.
And this is where it is tough for Weibo because you don't have as much of a side lane threat in Breathe, which is why having Xiaohu kind of answer on the side lane is your best bet. I'd rather see Xiaohu not match Bin though, and have Breathe just wave clear against this Jax. So then you have another point of pressure on the map that you can then release Xiaohu from to move mid, to draw members of BLG away so they can't just wave clear on turrets all day.
Crowd is getting into it, man. I'm loving this second game much more than the first at this point in time, just because we have so much more trading.
Because there's kills.
There's kills.
Yes, because there's
just
kills.
Just admit it, you're a play-by-play.
I enjoy the kills in League of Legends. It is a PvP game, my friends, and we are seeing some good PvP here so far. 3-1-2 on Light, who does now have his Rage Blade completed. This Kalista is an absolutely massive threat, but at the same time, there's always that double-edged sword. He's got so much of the lead, so much of the gold. If he gets popped at the very start, if you do have a good rel engage followed up by Syndra and Ziggs both pressing R at the same time, Weibo feels like they'll crumble.
Exactly. It's really tough, and that's why I think Weibo are going to be really careful around these missing summoners from Light. They're not going to be looking for any sort of risky plays until those are back up, and even with this big gold lead, you look on the other side for Elk, he's at a pretty strong point in the game too. Does have those 2 completed items, but the MR is starting to come through. You can see Light has that Hex Drinker. I do think we're going to see both these AD carries with full Maw by the end of the game.
But I think it's great to see people finally taking notice of Light. He's been to the main stage with LNG back in the day, but never really got towards the playoffs to show what he's really capable of. Now coming on towards Weibo, he's really got to show how strong he can be, both last year and now at this tournament and things like the Ezreal as well.
Ooh, nice connect on the Ishtal impact coming out from Shun, immediately into the unleashed power. Knight and Shun together find the pick on Xiaohu.
Yeah, it's a big pick in the side lane. Let's see how much more BLG can get, but I fully agree with you, Dagda. I mean, I think Light on a team that is kind of pure chaos in Weibo, he's that consistency. He is that guy that is slowly scaling up, that can really take over in a 5v5. It's hard to shine he's an AD carry in the LPL because there's so many good ones, but he really does stand out in a very stacked crowd.
You're also going up against Knight, who is the kingmaker in the LPL right now, and it's plays like this working with Shun that set BLG up for success on side. They get the tier 2 tower, they get more gold in towards this Syndra, and it's getting tougher and tougher for Weibo to try and answer back now with how well BLG are starting to play on these sides.
I'm going to be really interested to see if BLG want to contest at this next dragon, because the third dragon I always think is such an interesting inflection point in the game. Well, 4th overall, but 3rd for one team. Because that puts you to soul point, and yes, you can give that up. It's not that a guaranteed power of the soul on this one, but it does mean one mistake, one pick, one poor setup, they get sold, they get permanent power for the rest of the game. So you have to have so much confidence that you can execute in that next one that you guaranteed will win that fourth fight and prevent the soul if you're not going to fight the third.
Speaking of confidence and executions, Elk confident there as he pushes up, gets that turret down to that threshold.
It's a confident W.
Gets rid of it, man. Confident satchel laying coming out here from the Ziggs. Very, very good at destroying these turrets. And when you combine him with this Jax in the side lane that you already pointed out, there's not really a split push answer for this game from Weibo's comp. If Bin really gets rolling, the destruction capability from BLG between the Ziggs and the Jax is just huge.
It really is, and that's where I kind of go back to a point that you were making, Rob, where it becomes about, I think, overloading his side lane, because Maokai can hold the Jax. Jax is not going to kill the tower in Maokai's face. You have enough wave clear, you're just going to be able to stand up, tank a little bit of damage, knock down that wave, but if you send a second member, if you overload that side lane, all of a sudden you're losing towers, all of a sudden the base is being threatened, and Weibo can get pulled apart across the map.
Dragon spawning now. Nobody's around it except for Bin, who is just clearing out his own sides. Blue buff right now should be able to secure that one pretty swiftly on the Jax, while everyone else jockeys for position over the control of vision near the Baron.
I think Weibo are just worried about that overload play happening, so they're trying to match on this top side as the waves start to get pushed out, but that was just giving windows for BLG to get them waves in check. Bin resets, though. There's no real TP ward for him to go to, though.
And look at Elk, I mean, he just uses the ult immediately on the wave, right? They're going to keep pushing out these waves. They're not going to allow Weibo to group in siege. It's always going to be cleared out. It's always going to be about buying time for Bin to make something happen in that side lane. And we can see Ez is very standard, working towards the Seekers as that third item. But we're going to need to see that Magic Pen come through for Knight and Elk very soon. They decide to not fight the third dragon for Weibo, so Weibo is on soul point now.
Yep.
They have got to get to as powerful as they can before this soul.
Oh, there's the TP for TP. They're just going to bounce on it with Shun.
Yeah, Shun has to flash away there. Ends up in a spot that could have been pretty compromised, but now Weibo taking the opportunity. They're starting up the Baron themselves. Farsight Trinket into the pit. Baron down to half HP. TP's gonna come in from Bin. Weibo committed into the pit. Baron down to 3,000 HP. Engage comes in from all with a Magnet Storm. The Baron is secured by Tarzan, but now they gotta try to get away from BLG's collapse. Skarner's ulti finds one. Light to the Rampage and Bin is down, but Light to the picture now too. Shun tries to escape, but he cannot survive. Tarzan barely getting away over the backside of the Baron pit as Breathe stands at a 1v3, but he stands not for long. It's BLG. They lost the Baron, but they're going to end up winning in kills. Breathe still getting away. You gotta be kidding me. He's still getting away. Galloway fails. Breathe finally falls.
TP though.
But a TP's coming in as it looks like Weibo might just look to mop him up. Xiaohu ready to go in, guns blazing. On, finds Shattering Strike into the skin of the week. Storm Surge execution from Elk.
He goes in guns blazing, but Knight's got a missile, blows him up as he arrives, and so much of this fight is about the focus on the fight from BLG. Weibo are all hyper-focused on going for the Baron. On goes in, gets this massive engage. Elk is getting AoE across the team. Knight is fighting over the wall, hitting spells on multiple members. And while Weibo focused the Baron, BLG focused Weibo.
And they absolutely tear them apart. Weibo managed to get Xiaohu out and Tarzan out, but Breathe does such a good job of buying time, and this is what we're talking about for the tree. It can be so difficult to take down a Maokai with this much gold, but he eventually will fall, and then Xiao, who the hell do you think you are, TP back into this play, goes to try and turn this around into the point and click from the Rel and the follow from Syndra. Look, he saw his moment. It just wasn't quite it, okay?
No, I mean, I saw the moment too. I think if he flashes early and doesn't let the Rel actually get to him, then there's an angle.
Nice slam from Shun, immediately following it up there with the Impale as On slams back through with the Magnet Storm, has to try to get away before Light's gonna be saved by the bailout. They pick off the enemy AD carry, but BLG's gonna be careful now. Bin versus Breathe off to the side. Low health bars on BLG's front line. On dies first, Shun barely stays alive. Breathe's about to drop it, it's a 2-for-1 for BLG. Max range scat of the week, and Knight makes his mark on the end of the fight.
It's BLG breathing a sigh of relief in this game. They managed to get the play on top, turn around that play on bot, and now they can start to rip through these turrets as well. They've been so good in these last 2 engages.
They absolutely have. The pressure that they're putting on Light, he's been a complete non-factor in the 5v5s. They get in onto him every time. On has had brilliant engages, and all of BLG has been there with the follow-up.
Oh, Shun and Knight taking a lot of damage here from this turret. Shun at death's door, barely gets out on that Skarner as the tier 2 falls in the mid lane.
And now they just get to set up again on sides. But you see here, Light stepping in river where he had no business being, the immediate impale, and then the crash down coming through from On to send it through. You've even got Bin and Breathe following through on this bottom side, but even though Shun does get caught going over the wall by this ultimate from the Maokai, they can't take him down. On is the only one that falls, and it's these choke points that are so crucial for BLG as you're trying to push through the Scatter the Weaks, push through the satchel charges in the minefields.
Exactly. I mean, Knight plays around space so well on the Syndra. If you're trying to get through this choke point, hits the first scatter on Tarzan, pushes him back. Then they try to push back in to support Breathe. Hits another one onto another layer. They get a kill off of that as well. You can see Xiaohu getting so much done on the other side too, but there's so much contribution across the board from BLG. Elk's on his death cap. He's working now on that Void Staff, and he is really starting to hurt.
Also, you're about to get the Abyssal Mask completed from Shun as well, which is just going to amplify all
Really
this
smart.
AP damage that you see, but looking for the pick here.
Okay, Shun gonna find the rest of Weibo waiting, however. Gotta be a little bit careful. This Skarner nearly killed at the very start, but Breathe is under a lot of pressure here in the bottom lane from Bin and Knight. BLG losing out in the health trade. Nobody dead on either side just yet. Shun has got to go back and heal up. This is what you were talking about earlier, Azael. It is 3 Drakes for Weibo. Their jungler on the other side for BLG is critically low on health, but they still need to try to stop the Drake. Crisp is nearly killed. Redemption summoned up to try to keep him topped off a little bit better as Breathe wraps around the backside of the enemy jungle, trying to again make sure he's ready for a pincer attack. The dragon is aggroed by BLG.
They're losing so much on the top side though. That was a massive wave that just crashed in, so Weibo finds space on the map here, but what can you do? Shun healing up.
Dragon gonna reset again. BLG claim their own blue buff for the extra spamming of the abilities, the Syndra and the Ziggs together. It's a lot of poke, it's a lot of damage. Breathe in the Drake pit. Infinitely tanky here on this Maokai. Happy to just absorb these blows for a little bit. The bouncing bombs again, connecting onto Crisp. The vulnerable enemy targets in the back line. Crisp down to 20% HP. Bin jumps over the wall here with a counter strike. Look at a lock up. Breathe, beat him down. He flashes over the wall, but On's got the kill with the Ignite. Hostile takeover, low value. Shun goes into the engage with the Impale, but he ain't gonna find the mark that he's looking for.
Nice.
On dies, light out plays. He's taken out 2. Weibo trying to continue the fight as Knight kills the enemy jungler. There's no junglers left. Light is struck down by Knight Syndra, and Crisp will be the last man to fall. And ace for BLG.
Light is snuffed by Knight. BLG win the fight, and they're gonna take the game.
It's the full team teleport party over into the mid lane. 31 minutes back and forth. BLG with Elk and Bin ready to just demolish these turrets. Knight flawless on his Syndra. 7, 0, and 8 to take BLG to match point.